All right, all right, all right. Hope you guys are doing great tonight. It's Thursday night, May 2nd, 2024. My name is 12 Gauge. Welcome to my channel. If you haven't been here before, I hope that you find something that you get useful out of looking through the videos and the information in which I present. I use commentary and I use very direct information, not meant to slander anybody. Use everything on the fair use. I'd like to welcome somebody tonight to help me assist with what I'm going to go through with the IDA-HOE. Guess what? So without further ado, here we go.
No further ado. Hey, 12 Gauge, how
What,
are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you. I've noticed you in the chats here and there. You were not feeling all that well a while back. Are you feeling better?
Oh man, I'm feeling so good. I went on a 2.1 mile walk with the dog today, but now I'm worn out. So it's a
Oh
different
wow.
kind of body ache than being sick. But
Oh
yeah,
man.
no, doing good. Hopefully, I think, you know, hopefully that means there's much more blood flow to the brain. I will have some hopefully intelligent things to say. I know the jury is still out on whether I've ever said anything intelligent. But we all have our fans and our haters, so that's fine.
Yeah, sometimes we say some intelligent thing to ourselves, and sometimes others perceive it as not being so intelligent. I've been there. So, um, thank
Hello,
you for being
Alex.
here. Thank you for being here on panel. Tonight, I'd like to start off with they called it a missing person, but it could be a recovery mission based on the ending of this video. So, this is a mom of three vanishes after sending this chilling text. He killed me. That's not all the chilling text said. It went into more detail, but let's go ahead and watch this. I'm borrowing this from Law and Crime Network, so thank you for their video that they presented. I'm just doing commentary on it, and Jeff is as well. So, you ready to watch this, Jeff?
Most definitely, yes.
All right, let's get to it. By the way, hello, nephew.
Especially when this young lady's been missing for a week. That is just not good because the longer that stretches out, as we see time and time again, it becomes a recovery and not a rescue.
A young mother of three disappears without a trace, only leaving behind a chilling text message.
I would think that's kind of an anomaly.
And now, human remains and a burning car found in the same county that the woman went missing.
Certainly, it's going to be somebody's going to get some bad news in one way or the other if you've got a body in a burned up car. So that's not good no matter how you cut it.
This is 25-year-old mother of three, Megan Bodiford. She was last seen on April 24th in the rural city of Denmark, South Carolina, about an hour south of Columbia. Megan's friend reported her missing after receiving a strange text from Megan's phone. The message read, quote, "If you don't hear from me in 30 minutes, he killed me. He has a gun." She hasn't been heard from since, and the phone was turned off after the message was sent. Friends say they believe Megan was referring to her boyfriend in the text, but he has not been named publicly by investigators, so we won't name him either. All we know from investigators is that Megan was reported missing and endangered. I asked former homicide detective Phil Waters what that could mean.
It depends on the circumstances under which the missing person report was filed. So if there was some indication that it was more than someone presumably getting up and just walking and getting in a car and leaving on their own, if there was some sort of struggle that was observed in the because there was stuff knocked over or whatever, or there may have been something, I mean, as dramatic as blood transfer, that kind of thing. blood spatter. There may be some indications there that it's not just someone who has chosen to be missing, but that they may have left by force and therefore they're considered to be endangered.
You know, Jeff, really quickly, I'm not a fan of this guy.
Uh-huh.
He he took a simple question that she asked him, and he turned it into, "I'm gonna walk you all around what you just said and come on back." He didn't even really answer the question how she asked it. Did you hear that?
No, I kind of missed it. I actually got,
Yeah.
yeah, I was slightly distracted with that thing in the bottom corner. Use incognito mode. I was like, what is that? And
Oh
squirrel.
yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, I understand that. But with him, I mean, he's a straight up law enforcement. You can tell that he's been law enforcement for a lot of years because he didn't answer the question directly. He jumped all around it. And he's going to do that the whole interview. So you guys hang in there and just kind of focus on her. She's the one that's missing. He's talking all about a lot of different other things other than the missing person. So let's just
They're
kind of
kind of like a tactic in with politicians. They'll answer the question that they'd rather answer instead of answering the question you asked them. Um,
exactly,
yeah.
exactly. So let's get focused on her.
But it's really Megan's last text that makes the case stand out. And the friend received kind of a creepy text that said, if you don't hear from me in 30 minutes, he killed me. He has a gun, meaning Megan's boyfriend. What do you make of that text?
Well, that's pretty specific. So that would, in homicide, we would call that a clue, right? So that would be something that authorities are going to take. And the source of that text, find out who she's talking about. And if she's talking about her boyfriend, in fact, then there's going to have to be an effort made to find her and hopefully in time nothing has happened to her. That's awful strange. Does that mean that she's with him and she sent the text somehow, or she's with him and he sent the text for some weird reason? So that is very odd text.
Do clues like this pop up often? It seems
Jeff.
I'm paying attention this time.
Doesn't he? I mean, I'm not trying to focus on him, but I'm like, bro, have you had too much coffee all day and you're just coming off of it after a long day at work? You really don't want to answer these questions, or what's really going on? Because you're jumping all over the place. You're not really giving her. I mean, the reporter is asking him straight questions, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there could be a lot of things going on. He could be like, this could be like the 50th interview that he's done all day, just one after the other. So maybe if we give him a benefit of doubt, maybe he's got a little of that going. Maybe this is also the kind of thing where they've edited this conversation together, where he got the questions emailed to him and he's talking to the camera, and then they've put it together. But I think it's presented as if they're having a live conversation. So maybe it's not.
Yeah,
that.
because I mean, he straight out laughed at her question, like it was.
Yeah, I did
like,
notice that
what
little
a
chuckle of.
Yeah, what a stupid question you're asking me. He's like, that's what we like to call a clue.
A clue.
I'm like, come on, bro.
Yeah.
Is she
yeah.
like? He's like, you're beneath me asking me all these dumb questions.
Yeah.
Maybe not. I mean, I'm just reading into it different, I guess.
Let's see. Maybe he'll redeem himself by the end of this.
Well, let's see.
it's pretty blatant.
Well, to say, do they pop up often? You're talking about in the terms of a text message being received, that kind of a thing. I wouldn't say often. No, I would think that's kind of an anomaly. That's a very strange. She's missing.
Even if he hasn't been named publicly, we know investigators probably gravitated toward Megan's boyfriend right away. Investigators, at least what I'm aware of, usually go to the significant other right away if somebody's missing or if there's a murder. So do you think that they would be following up with this guy right away?
Oh, I think so. I think once it's known to them vis-a-vis this reported missing person with the text thing and all that stuff, that you start on the inside out, start on the inner circle and work your way out. So I'm sure, especially given the nature of that text message, I'm sure he's the first one they're going to snatch up and have a conversation with.
And there's a logical reason why his name hasn't been listed.
I would imagine that they're keeping things pretty close to the vest because there are a lot of things that they know that the public does not need to know at this point in time. So they're not going to compromise their investigation just to satisfy, media people and people that want to be nosy.
Early on, Phil says investigators probably used a variety of tactics in their search for Megan.
I'm sure they're doing. I would think especially if it's a rural area, if they have the capabilities for some port of an air unit of some kind, of Fox unit, helicopters, that kind of thing, utilizing those as well. So you're going to have people on the ground, of course. They may have used tracking dogs. I mean, there's a lot of things you can do in a search. It's just going to kind of depend on where they started from and how far out they needed to go.
Okay, Jeff, let me sum this up for you because I don't know if you heard in the very beginning, they found a car. The car was burnt up.
With the body inside, right?
Yes. They haven't, and this guy's talking about, well, if they find this and they find that, hey, it's a burnt up car. They have found some evidence. So it's kind of,
Right.
Here's the incognito. If you've ever been a victim, you can sue Google. Here you go.
This is a law and crime legal alert and a law and crime YouTube takeover. Google Incognito tracked users' browsing data without their knowledge. Mass Tort Alliance, one of our legal sponsors, is helping users file for compensation due to Google misleading the privacy of their incognito browser. If you've used Google Incognito anytime since 2016, you can start your claim in less than 10 questions at incognitoclaims.com/LC takeover. And we've talked about this mysterious text that was sent from her phone right before she went missing. But would investigators also look at her other data, past texts, calls, who she was discussing things with, and what sort of topics were on her mind?
Well, sure, and they'll get the. I'm sure one of the first things they would do would be ping that phone to find out where it was when that text message was sent, or where it was when it was turned off, or quit transmitting anything. So that phone is going to be valuable in pinpointing times of events.
The timeline continues to April 30th, when a burned vehicle with human remains is discovered in Bamberg County, the same county where Megan went missing. So far, the remains have not been publicly identified, but the case has been handed over to the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, or SLED.
So the gal's been missing a week, and that's a lot of time for a lot of bad stuff to happen. So now that they have found a body in the car, if we presume it is her, I mean, that certainly is a possibility that she's been alive up until today. I mean, there's certainly a possibility. So once they start sifting through it, talk to this boyfriend, start getting trying to put some of these puzzle pieces together, that gives them at least a partial picture of what may have happened to this young lady. They're moving through it methodically, and it sounds to me like they know something. They've got some pretty good information, and of course, it sounds like that's perhaps going to be this missing person. And if it's not, I mean, it's going to be somebody's going to get some bad news in one way or the other if you've got a body in a burned up car. So that's not good, no matter how you cut it.
Well, how is that funny, bro? Did you hear him? Jeff.
What? Yeah.
Did you hear him chuckle again?
Yeah, I don't know what Yeah, I don't know what the humor is.
Yeah, he
Um,
said somebody's going to get some real bad news, and then he chuckled and laughed.
huh.
Yeah. Anyway, let's get through this. This guy is not one of my favorites.
It. I don't believe in coincidence, so that doesn't. For me, that narrows it down. That you've probably got the missing person found. It's a you know a recovery.
And I know you mentioned they're likely keeping things close to the vest, not to compromise the integrity of this investigation. But we do know that investigators are now looking at the remains to determine who it is. How long do
Sure.
you think it would take for them to come forward and say, yes, this is our victim, or no, this is somebody else in an unrelated case?
Well, it will depend on what what the body's state is in. If they have features that they can identify, if she has tattoos, that kind of thing, and of course they can go to dental records, then the DNA, of course, that kind of thing.
In the end, Phil says all roads lead back to that eerie text message sent from Megan's phone.
I'm just surprised that the weird text messages kind of, um, that should have been. Of course, we don't know how quick authorities were to go up on that phone, make those things happen as quickly as possible, given the nature of the text. And again, the possibility is that she made the text, she got caught, he destroys the phone, turns the phone off, chunks the phone, you know, in BFE somewhere, and throws them off the trail, at least as far as the phone's concerned. So a lot of things I'm thinking in my head that I'd be doing, and I'm sure SLED is doing. And they're going to be, if that doesn't work, you hit a wall, then you move to the next thing and get going. So
Yeah, there's the text. It says, if you don't hear from me in 30 minutes, he killed me. He has a gun.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm done talking. I'm done hearing that guy. What do you think about that, Jeff? I
All
mean,
right. So he didn't redeem himself by the end. He's now not your favorite, or
no,
maybe
he
just needs
really
another
isn't.
chance,
I
another
mean,
video.
the reason that he's not one of my favorites is, I was thinking on the Idaho 4 case, what we're about to talk about,
Uh-huh.
is I wonder if they had that kind of nonchalant, oh, it's only 4 dead bodies, it's no big deal. We we first gotta find out who they are, and just
Hmm.
kind of like you're ordering a pizza or something. You know what I mean? There's no sense of urgency there. But
Yeah.
he's not the one investigating. I get that. But there's
Right.
really, even if you're not investigating it, wouldn't you want to at least give the police department a look like there is a sense of urgency?
Is there and maybe we'll play good cop bad cop on the issue, and I'll
Okay.
try and give him the benefit of a doubt. If is it possible it's one of those things where it's like to do that job, you have to like distance yourself from you know where like to be able to look at bodies that have been murdered or burned and awful things done to. There's part of you that kind of is required to look at it like it's just ordering a pizza, in order to just not go crazy with just the awfulness of humanity. Maybe there's a little element of that comes through, or maybe just lacks a little bedside manner, just to I don't
Yeah, it
know.
could be. I don't know. I'm not up in arms about it. I'm not upset about it. The first time I watched it, I was just kind of like, bro, you're just,
Yeah.
I'm in a capacity where, I don't go on my feelings or emotions either, but if something tragic happens, I have to show a little kind of concern.
Yeah. There's also too, it's kind of funny. There's so many factors like trying to analyze something like this. I mean, there could be other people in the room with him. He could have some buddies that are like, "Hey, we're going out to dinner right after you finish this last interview, right? Yeah, yeah, I'll be right there." And they're like trying to, you know, I don't think that's it though. I think it's maybe that's just, but it could be. Somebody's off camera and they're like, they're flashing your chest at you or something, and like,
Yeah.
I'm trying to do an interview here. But I think well, no, I don't want to say because I might be thinking of somebody else. But I think I've seen him on some other things and like on a panel. And sometimes it's, well, I don't want to attribute to him because it could be somebody else, but sometimes I feel like there's some panels that I see on some of these channels that are, the bigger channels, Law and, was it Law and Crime? Is that what it, the Law and Order?
Yeah,
The one you
law
just
and
showed, but
crime.
or some of the, just the, you'd call them bigger ones, I guess, but I feel like, gosh, there's some things that they don't, some basic things that they don't know that, us that kind of follow this Idaho case pretty much daily and have been doing it for a long time. There's just certain things that are just everybody knows that have been there, but you can kind of tell it's like, wait, you don't know that part, or you don't know this part, or
Right, right. And I mean, I wanted to open that not only to put some emphasis on a missing person at this point because they really don't know if that's her or not. To be fair, they just
right,
found the car, they found the body. They haven't really released any kind of suspects or anything like that. So I just wanted to show some information about this individual. I saw it earlier. It was kind of fresh. I thought, you know what? I want to start off my live with this. So
that's
as
good.
far
You
as
never know. You never know who's going to see it. If I would ever go missing, I would hope that some YouTuber would, say, hey, you know what? I think I'll try and draw a little awareness to this. Maybe
right,
somebody will
right.
will see this.
And it kind of reminds me every crime from the Idaho 4 on for some reason it it kind of leads into what we're going to talk about tonight. Um, as far as the PCA and the cell phone pings and things of that nature, I spoke a little bit about it last night, but I've been thinking a lot more and I want to get more into detail on it, even though it's probably been discussed a million times, like I said last night. I haven't discussed it. So for my
Mm-hmm.
own, not my ego or anything, for my own, I guess, understanding, I want to go over it. Does that make sense?
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the just going back to the beginning and looking at stuff. Yeah, there's always possibility of missing something or misunderstanding something, or just understanding things better today because of what we know today.
Right.
When we look
Before we
at
start on
hindsight.
that, let's give a little commentary on this statement by JoJo. Welcome to the chat, by the way, JoJo. She or he stated the next hearings are closed. So how do you feel about that, Jeff?
Did they determine that? Because I now granted I only watched the hearing once. While I was walking the dog, I was listening to it. I
Yeah,
did hear the part where I know Anne was saying it's like the first, second, and third hearings were all open, and I think she was trying to argue it's like why would we need to close
yeah.
hearings now?
Triple
Um,
J did state that they would be closed up to a portion that he might open them up if he felt like there was
mm,
no pertinent information that could be um, spoke about. But he said he did want to start them closed off, and then
mm.
if things were going well, I guess, and he could open them up at that point.
And they're talking about doing them like twice a month, right? Isn't that what they
Yes,
finally agreed to after talking
yes,
about it?
yes. Every 14 days or so.
Well, the thing you just showed, that guy was saying he was describing law enforcement's reaction, and I think he used they were keeping it close to the vest, and he said there are things that the public doesn't necessarily need to know. That made me think of this hearing, today, and it's difficult. I think as I sit there and listen to both, you know, Ann and Bill Thompson. I mean, just like I listened with the channel I was listening to it on, the playback, I could tell it's like, what's no doubt where they stand, where their bias is.
Right.
They love Ann, and I got to admit, I guess I do have a bit of a bias that when I hear Bill Thompson talk, even though I feel like he can't, there's things so much he can't say, and it's got to drive him crazy. I'm sure he just wants to just let out in what he knows, but I don't know. I definitely, it's hard to listen to both of them. It's like, okay, you're both saying things from the opposite ends of things. Like,
Right.
who is really telling the full truth here? Who's got the
I was wondering, Jeff, throughout listening to it, because I listened to it on Law and Crime without um a creator actually, commentating on it, or, any of that. I was wondering throughout the whole thing at this point, what does sealing and the gag order and all that, honestly, because what does that have to do with the trial? I mean, at this point, you'd think they'd open everything up. If he's the right
yeah,
guy, if he's not the right guy, I mean, eventually people are going to know what evidence you have. What's wrong with
right,
opening it up? What's wrong with not infringing on his Sixth Amendment right to a public trial? And that's what I heard her say more than once. Is
right.
you're infringing on his Sixth Amendment right to a public trial, which she's right. How can
Yeah,
you?
I agree. Yeah, but it sounds like Bill Thompson is in opposition to what she's claiming. She's saying, that she's incorrect. That she, because she claimed again, I think in this one, that she didn't have 95% of discovery, that, and and I think he said he clarified that and said that he, so it sounds like from his perspective, he believes she does have, everything that she could have. And I think they mentioned the cast as well. That I think he
Yeah.
said that he doesn't yet have it, so she doesn't have it. Um,
And she
you
also
know,
dropped a bombshell today about an FBI subpoena for the IGG stuff.
hmm,
That was later on toward the end. I mean, if you want to go review it, I would suggest that you go to Law and Crime
yeah,
and
yeah,
review it on their website, because it's easy to hear. You can see everything. It's not all over the place.
yeah. The channel I was listening to it on, anytime the Thompson or the judge was speaking, I had to listen to it through a voice saying, "You effing liar! You effing this! You effing." It's like, come on, guys, let me listen to the.
Right, right. That's why I chose to listen to it on a non-creator site. It's kind of hard sometimes because
Do you?
people
Yeah,
people do
yeah,
have
I
their
agree.
biases.
Do you think that the gag order and all that caution that they've got upon all this? Do you think there are people that are willing to testify? There are stories to tell, but these people are only willing to tell it as long as they're, and maybe they promise them, it's like, look, you will not be dragged through the mud in the public. You won't end up on Nancy Grace. Your testimony will talk about it at the trial, and it's kind of like it's an attempt to protect that, because if they were to just speak out openly, I mean, would that open it up to where certain people that would have testified are like, heck no, you guys have no control over this, and it's all out in the media now, and I'm not testifying, or I don't
Well,
know
it
if that's a
sounds like,
possibility. If maybe they have to testify under law. I don't know.
of course, if you get subpoenaed, obviously you got to testify. But you bring up a good point there, because if she stated she's going to have two witnesses, one, possibly maybe two, some exhibits, and then on the next one it might be two again with some more exhibits. But she didn't specifically say, that she wouldn't let the prosecution know what she planned on doing. They were making it sound like she wait till the last minute, and then she drops all this stuff on them, and they don't have time to prepare. So, hearing from both sides, it sounds like they both do that to each other. It's
Yeah,
like one side will drop a subpoena, or not a subpoena, like a motion on a Friday evening right before the deadline, and then she has to answer to it by Tuesday. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
vice versa. So I mean, they're both kind of playing a little dirty on that aspect, I believe.
yeah. From the hearing today, you can tell that it got a little ugly there. I think even the judge had to say, "Hey, you all got to play nice."
Yes,
um,
yeah. So
But
I
I know,
mean,
you know, she's got a job to do. He's got a job to do. And I also, do you ever get the feeling that like the niceness of the judge, I feel like, is it part of the result of just, this is small town Idaho. Things like this don't happen. They deal with, you know, court cases that aren't of this magnitude, and is this just kind of a, you know, a relatively new thing for them? And they're just trying to figure out the best way to, and nobody wants to do it incorrectly, so that they end up having to come back, you know, on appeal, you know, basically for just mistakes that they made, you know,
Well,
through
that's what they
inexperience.
say. That's what they say. That's what the prosecution always says. You know what I mean? It's like, well, we want to get this right. We don't want to rush things. We don't want this, that, and the other. But both sides, if they truly do have 95% of the disclosure and they both have gone through it, then they know what they got. They know whether it's a winnable case or they're going to lose the case, one or the other. At this point, there's no more guessing. You get what I'm saying? Because
Yeah.
they reference, like Ann was referencing today about the video cameras, about how she has portions of, I don't know if she said Linda Lane, but I thought she did. I thought she
Yeah, I don't
said,
think. Yeah, I was listening closely to see what clips she might be referring to. I don't know that she did. I know she mentioned that some were without audio,
yes,
or I don't know if she meant parts were without audio, and I think too, though, I wouldn't put it past Ann to not say she. There was another YouTube creator that said it's like, you know, Ann, when she says things or presents things, there's a desired headline that she's looking for in the newspaper tomorrow morning or whenever,
right,
you
right,
know, and so nothing is said. Actually, this guy I interviewed just a week or so ago. He's presented as an attorney in front of the Supreme Court like almost 30 times. He was an amazing guy that I got to interview, an older guy, and but I think he was saying, or no, his wife was saying that she learned from him that you never just let opportunities go by. Whenever you're saying something, you're using every moment of your time when you're speaking as a lawyer. You're using it to towards the case, towards
of
making your
course,
point, and towards getting that headline that you desire the next day. You know,
of course.
so
But you know, like she said, you know, we got bits and pieces of it, a small portion. We don't have the audio part of it, you know, so automatically people are like, okay, why don't they have the audio portion? You know, what is
mhm.
you know, it's almost like what is the other side withholding? And like I mean, she speaks a lot more than Bill, so her statements stick with you a little more than his do. You know what I mean? And it's unfortunate because he is the prosecutor. You know, his voice should stick with you if that's the side that you're on. You know, if you're presenting a case and you're, you know, wanting to deflect what the defense is throwing at you, you would think that his voice would stick out a little longer or some of the statements that he makes, but they don't, you
Mhm.
know. When she said that about the video, you know, that's what stuck out. There's no audio on some of it. So where's
And
the
maybe it's
audio?
one of those things too. It's like if he were to explain what the reason for there not being audio on the clip she was talking about, does that then does he risk having talked about it in this hearing? Does that affect how he can use it in the future, in the court, in the trial, during the trial? You know, does is he? So it's almost like he doesn't want to say anything if that's the case. Whereas
Right.
she's willing to, like, you know, poke and prod and say, you know, what about this? What about this? And what about that? And you know, and surely she's saying, she says this, the public thinks this, and he sits there and thinks, I'm just going to have to let the public think that because I can't speak on it right now. I'm just going to have to be
Right.
patient. Like when the conversation about the stalking, when they had Edelman up on the stand.
Yeah, and he
I
broke.
can't, well, that's what everybody looks at it. I listened to that many times. And there's part of me that wonders if Bill Thompson doesn't still believe that there was stalking going on, but he managed to get Edelman to admit that Edelman believes stalking was false, which means Ann's also. And I think, I mean, maybe that's all. That he just got Edelman to admit that the
Right.
stalking was false. So basically, and that's the thing. I think depending on how most look at Bill Thompson, they're not going to see that as a win if that's what it is. I still am on the fence as trying to decide if that's what happened. But you can, if you listen to it, you can see that, because attorneys do that all the time. They'll say something like, the in questioning, it's like, sir, the earth is flat, right? And if the guy thinks incorrectly, it's like, well, yeah, of course, the earth is flat. Okay, no further questions. The headlines and everybody's reporting the next day, well, Bill Thompson thinks the earth is flat. Did you hear him? He just said the earth is flat in his question. I wonder if there's a little bit of that going on with that. Because he was kind of, I don't know. You have to listen to it again and see.
Yeah, I got to go back and listen to that, obviously. If they need an audio from Linda Lane, I know somebody who has done the audio, even distorted, not distorted, but taken out a lot of the noise. So, for a small contract fee, they can link up with me, and I'll get them in touch with a good guy, who can give them a good
Careful
video.
now. I'm not interested in being on the stand.
No,
I'll get
but
up there.
I was thinking that when she said there's no audio, I was like, well, I know where there's plenty of audio. I know where there's plenty of audio. I hope she wasn't talking about the 11-12 house. If that's the one she's talking about, then there might not be any audio or audible audio. You know what I mean? Maybe she meant there wasn't any audible audio. Maybe there is audio, but it's so grainy and distorted you really can't decipher.
Yeah, see, that could be the kind of thing that's going on too. It's like if she, I mean, wouldn't it be brilliant to say, yeah, there's part of the clip with no audio, and if this is what was going on, it's like it was just a moment in the video where it was just happened to be very quiet. It sounds like there's no audio, and then he bit on that bait and said, which clip are you talking about? No, there's audio all through that, and then he specified which clip. She'd be like, yes, we got him,
Yeah, it's
also too the video, the body cam. It's my understanding. I think some of the body cam stuff I've seen, I get the feeling that sometimes the video and the audio are recorded separately and then are merged. I wonder if and sometimes I think maybe there's issues that happen when they first turn the camera on and they're not synced up or something, and there's
right,
no
kind of like we do sometimes. We're on mute and we don't even realize it.
Right.
They're just recording, but there's no sound.
Yeah.
So
there could be explanation for things, and I don't know.
That's a good theory. I mean, but I just want to discuss that a little bit. I mean, I don't want to spend the whole live discussing the hearing today, but those were the major high points that I took from it. As far as the grandstanding from Miss Taylor. I mean, she's very vocal, and they say a lot of times the more theatrical the attorney is, the more the jury buys into their presentation. So maybe she just rehearsing for the trial. You just never know.
That's true. Yeah. This could be like with the political videos that I used to edit. Most of the videos of the candidates that had the bigger budgets, they would always run their finished commercial by focus groups and then get their thoughts on it. So who knows? Maybe it's kind of, what's that old expression? Run it up the flagpole, see who salutes. So she does this, and then she checks with. And just certainly, there's certain YouTubers you go to, and she probably goes to there, and it's like, "Yep, they still love me. They still love me. I'm still the Messiah."
Right. It's kind of like in your hobby. You don't get an invite to a gig with the Beatles, and then you don't practice one time. You just show up for the gig. How prepared are you going to be? Are you going to be polished? Are you going to be at your best? No, you're not.
Right.
So I
Yeah,
mean,
especially when it comes to like, poking jabs at Bill Thompson.
of
That's
course,
and I'm sure it's the same thing with Bill Thompson too. He's like, I'm sure he's checking to see the reaction of now that's I would love to be on a fly on a wall to know. It's like, with regards to that stalking thing when he talked about that.
right.
Either he's sitting there in his room alone thinking, "Oh man, how could I have said that? I just slipped and revealed something." Or is he sitting there saying, I got Edelman to bite on that, and
Right, exactly.
because Edelman
Y-
was very clear. I mean, he answered the question, and there's no doubt in my mind Edelman thinks that the stalking is a false thing. There's doubt in my mind as to what Bill Thompson thinks, so that's why I think could have been a very clever move, and especially a clever move when everybody is convinced you don't have any moves, and then you find out later it's like that was actually a move.
Paula says I've heard that on body cams, audio is delayed from video for purpose of redactions. I've never heard that, but I mean anything's possible, you know?
I know if it's anything similar to like Adobe Premiere, because like when the interview I shot recently, I shoot the video is on my camera, the good quality audio from $1,000 boom microphone goes into a separate recorder, so the audio and the video are two separate things. I bring them into Adobe Premiere, I select both of them, and then I click on synchronize, and it synchronizes them. And sometimes in shorter clips, it gets a little confused, and it's like I can't quite find the same spot, because it's matching the camera audio, which is a lower
Right.
quality mic to the. I think it's a little different than that, but it could be a similar technology where it's trying its best, or it's like the whether one starts recording before the other. You know,
I
I
mean,
think
to
it's
be
just
fair,
one button.
also, I mean, think about being on a body cam and you accidentally, and I'm not trying to be gross here or anything, but you actually clear your throat or you sneeze or, some part of you, does something that you don't want to be heard, everybody to hear that
Hmm.
on cam. You might start the cam later or earlier or something, or, maybe you say something that wasn't politically correct, or maybe it was a joke you were joking with your partner about. And I mean, to be fair, that I could see why they would redact certain things. Hopefully, they're not redacting evidence or
Right.
statements of evidence. You know what I mean? Like on here, one day I noticed that I was live, and for some reason I belched louder than I anticipated, and I was like, "Holy shit!" Now everybody that watches this live is going to hear that. There's no redacting it. I don't know how to edit the stuff out, so
Right.
I
Right.
just left it in. I'll leave it up to y'all to find the video.
Now,
So
is that why they've been calling you 12 Belch Phillips? I was wondering
maybe
because
so.
I'm like, where does that come from?
Maybe so, man. Maybe so.
Or too, well, like the Banfield camera, they're when those guys on the field, they're asking them their address, things like that, personal information. I know that's edited out, and I imagine that's edited out. I don't believe that's the officer saying, "Okay, I know they're about to say something." No, of course they wouldn't. They need that. They want that. That's got to be edited out after the fact.
Oh
So
yeah,
it could very well just be stuff like that. And if that's
yeah,
the kind of
Paula. That
thing, then
makes
that's a kind of a game that she'd be playing. She's saying there's clips of video with no audio. It's like if it's a spot in the video where somebody is about to reveal their address and their phone number and stuff, clearly,
yeah,
okay, that's just a redaction.
yeah, that could be. Yeah, you're right on point, Paula. For the purpose of birthdays, addresses, phone numbers, that's
Yeah.
that's on point. And that's understandable. I mean, not everything that people do is nefariously done. Some of it's done for protecting people's HIPAA. There's HIPAA laws where you got to protect people's identity and this, that, and the other. It's for good cause, but sometimes it backfires, and people run with it as a nefarious act or something of that sort.
Right.
I like the dialogue tonight. I like the dialogue tonight. Not, last night was a good dialogue as well. I've had some good guests on here. You guys are very
Yeah.
able to keep the conversation flowing. I like that.
I, I enjoyed what you were doing yesterday. I was shopping in Costco and so distracted. I'm trying to listen to the show. Every now and then I'm commenting on my phone and I'm walking up
Yeah.
and down the aisles and people must be thinking like, what is he doing? If 1 second he's looking at the shelves looking for something. The next thing he's doing laps around this one spot and he's texting. It's like,
You're gonna end up on some creeper video, Jeff.
yeah. It wouldn't have surprised me. It's like, if we were shopping late and like I'm texting into the phone and the security guard is like, "Sir, the store's been closed for an hour. What are you doing?" It's like,
Right,
"Oh, I
right.
just got this one point just came to me."
Yeah, I just got to make this point. Hold on, they just commented on something. You know, I want to send a plug out because I know this person has gotten a lot of backlash lately and a lot of criticism and a lot of just angst towards her. I don't want to talk about any of the past. I want to talk about what I saw today. If you haven't already seen Crime Sleuthen's overlay on the Sebastian Rogers case, she did an excellent job on that. I mean,
Yes.
she nailed it. Like it was great. As far as all the other stuff, if you don't like her, if you have issues with what she's done or whatever, that's neither here nor there. That's between you and that person. I don't have anything to do with that. I just am giving her props for her video today. I thought it was pretty great. I thought it was pretty awesome.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I was there too watching that live and yeah, she did a great job with that. Yeah, as I was thinking that as I was watching it, it's like, she seems like a very nice person. She seems very like her thinking is very clear and scientific, especially in this overlay that she was doing. It's like I just don't get how anybody can have any issues with her. She seems just and all the time I've known her, but I wonder sometimes, sometimes if you're a nice person, just your niceness becomes maybe a target for some people, and they're like, "Oh,
I'm sure they have.
bet we
They
can
all
get your
have
goat."
personal. I'm sure they all have personal reasons for all that they do and say. I mean, I just don't want to get into all that. You know what I mean? I just wanted.
Yeah,
I believe in giving props when props is due. There's a lot of creators that actually do a great job, and I don't hear their names enough. I don't hear their channel being plugged. And I want to start doing that when I see or hear of a presentation that's pretty awesome. I want to give them props because they deserve to go get it looked at. That was an awesome job.
yeah,
I
yeah,
I always thought that one, the two lights, I'd always heard that's a trash truck, that's a trash truck, and the flashlight with the little boy walking or whatever. So I never thought twice about it. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And
yeah.
then
I was
when she gave
totally
you,
incorrect with where the that can't. I'm sorry, I cut you off. What'd you say? The last thing?
go ahead.
Yeah, with the where that camera is located, I was totally off with where I thought that was. I
Right.
didn't realize it was from a house like all the way at the end of the block, looking up into the backyard of the Proudfoot's house. I had no, because I know I had seen there's a little short clip where you can see a truck in the driveway, and so I had always pictured it as being the camera being mounted to the Proudfoot's house. I didn't realize it was so far away. And yeah, when you overlay it, and then you start to imagine, okay, where these possible, if they're flashlights or whatever the lights are, that's
Yes.
kind of up in the backyard there. It's like, okay, this is a different image that it's painted for me, and so I definitely learned something. Definitely corrected my
Yeah, me
understanding.
too. Because I thought, because I've heard, I do pay attention to the case, even though it's something that I really don't want to dive into. I do feel for the families. Losing a loved one by that manner has to be extremely terrible. And I can't even imagine what they're going through. But to hear that was a trash truck, I too, Jeff, thought that those lights that were on the garage, that there was a camera there pointing toward the road that was showing the trash truck coming up the street. And there's no way that could have been. You know what I mean? Like, based on what she showed today, it
Right.
literally looked like what you and I talked a little bit about was somebody, and I didn't realize there was a fence around that whole backyard either. So it looked like somebody came around the side of the house, and it looked like they dropped the flashlight in there because there's a lot of overgrowth around the backyard. So it
Hmm.
looked like somebody dropped the flashlight and then the other flashlight was kind of guiding them. But there's houses, there's like a shed there, and all kinds of stuff throughout that little area. So I don't know what that second light is. It'd be interesting to find out.
And I wish somebody. I think it would be very helpful if somebody would just present that camera footage unchanged, just as it is. Let everybody else do the zooming in. I'm sure whoever did that was trying to be helpful. But like you'll
Right.
notice, like on the Linda Lane footage that I put up, I um, removed a lot of the bassiness and the noise and the audio, but I didn't mess with the video. I just left it. I left it so that you could see the timestamps. So many times people take this, like even the Linda Lane footage, and they're like, "Look, I've zoomed in, and look at this is what I'm seeing here." And it's like, okay, you also have gotten rid of the timestamp, and now we can't cross-check your work. It's like,
Right.
so like just give us the camera footage. What would be helpful too is like give us the camera footage of the event in the moment you think something nefarious is happening, and then give us some of that same exact camera angle from shot during the day.
Yes,
That would be
exactly.
the perfect overlay because Crime Sleuth did a great job, but she was using the camera footage from the Google Maps car that's going to be a
Yes.
little bit lower angle, but still not too much. I think it really still gave you an idea of the location of those
Yes.
those
Yeah.
lights and the two
I
the
mean,
two
it's an
lights on the
interesting
house.
case. It's an interesting case to dive into, and I can tell that a lot of people are interested in, finding the clues and things of that nature. I mean, I salute to those that do due diligence to really help this little boy come home, or
Yeah,
whatever has happened to him. I just hope he's either found or, something of that nature. Take the focus off the parents and let's find a little boy, like what she
yeah,
did with the overlay, that showed more in that little bitty minute and a half, 2 minutes than I've seen in 6 hour streams. You know what I mean? It just,
right.
because people get into arguing, well, no, that's not a trash truck. That's two bicycles with lights on it, or there's no way that could be this.
Right.
Nobody that I have heard has even mentioned the backyard. Um, it looks like an iron fence. It
Yeah,
looks
yeah.
about probably 6 foot, if that. It's probably 5 to 6 feet. So
Yeah, if I'd have walked up on that house of the Proudfoot's house and said, "Okay, let me look in the direction where I think I saw that video," I would be looking in exactly the wrong direction
right,
because
exactly.
I thought it was like from the back corner of the house on the far side, pointing towards the street, and I was trying to figure out. It's like, wait, how do you get a trash truck and yeah, it didn't make. Well, I mean, this is the kind of thing. This is the whole reason I even got into a YouTube channel and doing stuff because I would sit there in live streams and people arguing and talking about things that are visual, and
Right,
then I started like I'd pull up and I'd take the visuals that they're talking about, and I'll tell the content creator that's live, say, "Hey, I just emailed you this. Might be helpful to what we're talking about. It's a visual," and then it would be helpful. And then I remember at
right,
the time I had all these things that I had pulled together, and it's like, well, these are still helpful. I'll put them on a YouTube channel, and next thing you
right,
know, it's like, but yeah, it's so that's the other thing too. It's like the PCA. It's like when people are arguing about the PCA. I think it says something like this, and I'm thinking, can't doesn't your computer have the like? I hit Command F and then I type PCA. There it is. I double click on it and open it up. It's like they'll sit there and argue about something that should be at their fingertips. They should have at least
right,
printed copy or, you know. But I guess
right,
maybe the goal is just to pontificate and talk about it and run your mouth and argue and complain and when somebody's saying something you disagree with, you say get the f out of here.
yeah. I mean, when it's all said and done, we all process information differently. We all process information at different speeds. We all process information based on our understanding of how we've been taught certain things go together. I mean, that's what makes us unique, and that's what makes us great. And that's why the individuals that come into my chat always say, "Hey, we agree to disagree." At the end of the stream, we shake hands and hope to see you again. I mean,
Right.
I've noticed that I haven't had some of the people coming back, and I hope it's not because of
anything that's being said in the chat or anything that I'm verbalizing vocally that has not had them come back. I understand life happens. You can't be in every chat, but I really want to extend that out. If you do watch this on replay, hopefully I haven't, for the lack of better terms, ran you off, because that's not my intent.
Yeah.
Well, I
Well,
want to get into
you can't weigh yourself down with thinking about stuff like that either. It's just best to just, you do your thing, and if they like it, they like it. If they don't, you know, they don't. But it's hard to not to look at it and say it's like, it's like you don't want to be so much like what's Sally Field, remember she accepted the Oscar? She's like, "You
yeah,
like me. You really like me." Everybody has that little bit of inside of them. It's like, "Oh, sure, I hope they like this." I'm not doing it
Right,
for so that they hate it. I'm doing it hopefully they like it.
right, exactly.
I like what you're doing. So at least you got that. At least at the very least, you got one, and I'm sure you
Well,
got more.
awesome, awesome. Well, I got Aquarius that says, she comes back. She's not usually a chatter. Well, I appreciate that. You're welcome here all the time. You too, Paula and JoJo and Alex and all the other people. But I want to get on with what I wanted to talk about tonight. I started talking about it last night. There was just a lot of information, and I was flowing through it so fast. I don't know if I came across clearly because I'm sure there was a lot of confusion based on the speed that I was going and some of the things that I was just saying. So I wanted to slow it down a little bit and have you up here tonight to kind of give me counter reference on anything that maybe you've heard based on the PCA or something that you've seen or maybe something you've researched that is clarity based on um, research rather than speculation.
Right, right.
So I want to start right here. It says, as part of the investigation, law enforcement obtained search warrant to determine cellular devices that utilize cellular towers in close proximity to the King Road residence on November 13, 2022, between 3 and 5 a.m. After determining the Coburger was associated with both the 2015 Elantra and 8458 phone, investigators reviewed these search warrant returns. A query of the 8450 phone in these returns, look at this right here. It said did not show the 8458 phone utilizing cellular tower resources in close proximity to the King Road resident between 3 and 5 a.m. It's things like this that I'm seeing for the first time. I've never seen this. I mean, I've read this like 3 times already, but I've never seen this when people go over to PCA. I've never seen them talk about this. Have you?
Hmm. You're talking about in the specifically
What?
that it's saying that is attached to the Elantra and the phone, and then that
Yes.
time gap. Is that what you mean?
Yes. As part of the
Yeah.
investigation, it determined the cellular phone and the cell towers in close proximity to the residence on November 13, 2022, between 3 and 5 a.m. After determining that Koberger was associated to the Elantra and the phone, investigators reviewed these search warrant returns. A query of the 8458 phone and these returns did not show the 8458 phone utilizing cellular tower resources in close proximity to the King Road resident between 3 and 5 a.m. So this is the kind of stuff that's going to be brought up in court. This isn't going to be okay. Well, we saw this on camera. We did this. This is stating about the cell phone, and people can decipher it differently. They really can. But I've read it twice now.
And the next paragraph, I guess, shows what their conclusion is about that. What you just read is that and it says, based on their training experience, that this is, the phone being turned
But
off.
let's leave that
Right.
out of the equation for a minute,
Uh huh.
okay? Let's leave because this is based on his understanding of the situation. Okay,
Right. Right.
I want to stick to this because this was a search warrant on the cell device and the towers in close proximity to the King Road residence
on November 13, 2022, between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. After determining that Koberger was associated with the Elantra and the phone, it said investigators reviewed those search warrants returns. A query of the 8458 phone and those returns did not show the phone utilizing cellular tower resources in close proximity to the King Road residence between 3 and 5. So on November 13th, between 3 and 5, his phone did not show any resources in close proximity to the King Road residence. And I know you don't want to hear that. I know you don't. I'm not trying to sway it one way or the other. I'm just reading what the PCA says. Okay?
Right.
That's all I'm reading. And I understand you want me to read this next part because this is where he says individuals can either leave their cell phone at a different location, turn their cell phone off to commit a crime. This is done by subjects in an effort to avoid alerting law enforcement, blah, blah, blah. We've read that.
But I think it's important what you're saying, that this PCA is written for the purpose of getting an arrest warrant. And
Yes.
they're just trying to say, here's all these factors that make us think we should look at this one particular guy. Because we checked out Jeff H. His phone was on, and he's nowhere near, 12
Right.
gauge. It's nowhere near. Phone was on. So,
But this
and
gives
it's not just this. It's this and the summation of all the other stuff put
Right.
together. And that's the thing. I think when if this was all you focused on, all you said, we'd sit here and we'd come up with reasons why it might be, might not
Right.
be, but taking it all into account, it's like, yeah.
So this is going to be obviously something the defense works on, right? This is pro defense if they choose to even talk on this. If I was going to talk on this, I'm not a lawyer by any means. I've never claimed to be a lawyer. I've never went to law school, none of that. But based on my intellect, if I was going to choose anything to talk about as far as evidence, and you're saying my client was there at that house between, what'd they say, 4 and 4:58, or 4, what was it, 4:25? And and then
yeah.
the murders occurred between 4 and 4:25. But here I'm showing you that based on the search warrant and based on the Elantra and the phone, these search warrants came back to say that my client was nowhere near there between 3 and 5. That would just be a statement. That's it. It's not saying this is a slam dunk, this is a boom, this is none of that. This is in the PCA. I didn't make it up. I didn't hear it from another creator. I didn't bring it over here to try to start drama, but it's written here in black and white.
Now,
You get what-
is this, I don't have a firm grasp on what they're trying to communicate with everything they're saying about Why Park.
I believe that this has a little bit to do with that.
Yeah, so they're trying to say, it's like, okay, and it definitely, and maybe it's very smartly so. You can see it's a game of like, okay, tell us what you know. Okay,
Yeah.
and then we'll tell you a response that fits with what you know. Because it's dangerous to just show our cards first. We're going to show our cards
Right.
second, or not at all, because we don't really want to show them. But we're going to show
Exactly.
show you the minimal, and then that's the game. It's going back and forth. They
So
neither
if I
one- neither
told
one's saying
you-
too much.
So if you showed me, okay, well, we know that we got camera footage that you were in the area between this time and this time, but we have no cell resources that say that you were near the King Road residence between 3 and 5. And that's what he's saying right here. Based on his training, there would be none because he either turned the phone off or it was on airplane mode.
So he's trying to say that as part of his investigation, the search warrants came back with nothing pinging close to the house between 3 and 5. But instead of just saying, okay, well, that's what we got, this other is where he jumps in and says, okay, well, I want to make sure that the judge knows, based on my training, experience, and conversations with law enforcement officers, to specialize, individuals can either leave their cell phones at different locations before committing a crime or turn their cell phones off. Why would you need to say that? There's no reason to say that. That's as good as you speculating.
Hmm.
You get what I'm saying?
Right, right.
I could say, you know what? I've seen hundreds of forensic file episodes. I have a couple friends that are cops, and they've told me that, sometimes people leave their cell phones at home, or as we heard, another theory, their phone was on YouTube looping, so it looked like they were at home while the crime was being committed.
Hmm.
Anything could be stated for this. It's like they're trying to try the crime.
Well, there's a couple times in the PCA where it says, like, we what they believe, what
Yeah.
they're speculating. We believe he went out this road because, and then that connects with whatever Interstate South, and so there's moments of speculation based on their experience, and I
But
imagine
that's not
to try and.
but that's not evidence though, Jeff. That's not evidence. You know that and I know that. You know?
But when if they were to be asked, it's like, okay, we're thinking about granting you an arrest warrant. Part of that I would imagine would be like the question. It's like, why do you believe that this is the guy? So the question about it I'm sure that's I would imagine a component of it. I'm no expert on PCAs, but I imagine there's a component of it where there is a little bit of speculation. Here's the evidence, and here's why we feel we need an arrest warrant. Because we believe this, this, and this. We believe
What?
these pieces of evidence mean that this is what may have happened, and we feel pretty strongly. We feel strongly enough about it that we think an arrest warrant is a good idea.
Well, this could be an infringement on his rights. This right here. Because once again, I'm not a lawyer, but based on what I've been reading lately, as far as the court documents and everything in my studies, none of this should be in here.
Hmm.
Unless he's the expert, he should not be talking about, based on his training, experience, and conversations with other law enforcement officers to specialize in the utilization of cell phone records. This part right here, individual can either leave their cell phone off or leave it at a different location. That should not even be in here. Once they put this in here right here, then you leave it as this is evidence. You don't put your interpretations on here. Kind of like frozen shock phase. I believe that was put in there because that was stated to her during one of her interrogations. So tell me, did it look like a frozen shock phase to you? Like when you were frozen and you were shocked at the same time?
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
Right, right.
Because he just goes on and on and on and on about this. And then he says, on December 23rd, 2022, I applied for granted another search warrant for historical phone record between November 12th, 12 a.m. and November 14th at 12 a.m. for the phone held by phone provider AT&T, approximately 24 hours preceding and following the times of the homicide. So this is legit. I applied for a search warrant for the historical data. On December 23rd, pursuant to that search warrant, I received records for the phone from AT&T. These records indicated that the phone is subscribed to Brian Koberger at an address in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania. The account has been open since June 23rd, 2022. So they're able to find who the phone belonged to when they turned it on, right? Are we
Mm-hmm.
clear on that?
Right. Right.
These records also included historic cell site location for the phone. After receiving that information, they consulted with the FBI special agent that is certified. Now they're getting with an expert, okay? And nowhere did the expert say his past extensive training showed that anybody would turn their phone off or leave their phone at home. He didn't say that at all, did he?
No.
No, he didn't. He just went on and told you that the FBI cast special agent they consulted with has 15 years of federal law enforcement experience, which includes 6 years with the FBI. From the information provided by Kath, I was able to determine estimated locations for the phone from November 12th to November 13th, the time period authorized by the court. So the court gave them that search warrant authorized by those dates. But they already told you, based on their investigators, this phone was not around the residence. All this is just to throw you off from that paragraph, in my opinion. It says on November 13th at approximately 2:42 a.m., the phone was utilizing cellular resources to provide coverage to 1630 Northwest Valley Road, apartment G201, Pullman, Washington. Here after the Koberger residence. At approximately 2:47, that's when he left, the cell resources to provide coverage southeast of Koberger residence, consistent with the 8458 phone, leaving the Koberger residence and traveling south through Pullman, Washington. This is consistent with the movement of the white Elantra. So obviously they saw camera footage is what consistent with that. Would you agree with that or not?
Yeah, it seems kind of important to that those two should match.
Yeah.
Like if the car makes a left on Walenta, the phone should also make that same left on Walenta, right?
That's what we call clues, right?
Right.
At approximately 2:47, the 8458 phone stops reporting to the network. See, that's why they're wanting to say between 3 and 5, they didn't have this phone reporting. But they didn't say 2:47 a.m. They said 3 and 5. This phone comes back on the network at what? 4:50? No, what was it? 4:46? Something like that. Do you get what I'm painting here, Jeff? So at this at this one, they said that the phone wasn't responding to any towers by the house between 3 and 5. Okay? Now down here they're saying the phone was either turned off or placed in airplane mode from 2:47 to when the phone came back on. Remember when he supposedly clicked it back on in Blaine about
Hmm.
2:40 or 4:48? So that would give them 3 to 5. But they didn't say that. They said 2:47. So his phone was still on at 2:47. It said approximately 2:47. So that's more. If you were hearing the word approximate, wouldn't you say it was more toward 2:47 than 3 o'clock?
Yeah. I don't know. I'm trying to read. It looks like in that paragraph they mentioned 247 twice, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm talking about this one right here. At approximately 2:47 a.m., the phone utilized cellular research to provide coverage southeast of the Koberger resident traveling south through Pullman. So if I tell you, hey Jeff, I'm gonna meet you at McDonald's at approximately 2:47 p.m. Be expecting me, a minute here, a minute there. Are
right.
you thinking I'm gonna arrive at 3 o'clock? Or are you gonna think, hey, maybe he's gonna arrive closer to 2:45 or 2:48?
Right. Yeah. No, I always have the 10-minute rule. If you're more than 10 minutes late, it merits a phone call saying, "Hey, I'm going to be late." But yeah, there's like a 10-minute window, at least in my mind, where
Yeah.
still kind of on time. You just ran into some things that we all deal with in life, the traffic or whatever.
I mean, I believe, and it's not a jab at law enforcement or any kind of cover up, but I believe that he said what he said because they can't account for 248 to 448.
Well, also could it be a simplification of language just to make it more easy, to make it easier to remember? Because I mean, anybody can remember 3 to 5,
Well,
but
they
when you
use the
start saying
word
247 to
but
5,
they use the word approximately twice.
yeah,
I mean, if we're going to say three, we just say at 3 o'clock, the phone utilized cell phone resources to provide a coverage outside the Coburger residence. You know what I'm saying? Or hell, we could have said 2:45, 2:40,
right.
2:30. But they said at approximately 2:47 a.m. That
And
means
I mean,
that
I don't understand, cellular tower stuff and how that works, but I don't know if it's like, does it um, does it ping or does it connect with a strong signal at one point and then a very weak signal that you can't be sure if it's you could even call it a connection because it was weak. So maybe there's a bunch of little tiny like things where you have to say, well, we got this one strong one at 247, and then we got a bunch of little weak transmissions. So maybe
right.
let's just call it at approximately 247. But then you
Okay.
say like, okay, those little weak connections, they definitely stopped by 3. So it's we can truthfully say from 3 to 5, there's nothing. But
Okay.
prior to around,
Paula says, and that's a good point, Jeff. Very good point. That's why, I want you to state what you feel, what you think, not what you feel, what you think.
mhm.
Paula says he's going to shut his phone off at 2:20. He's going to shut his phone off at 2:30 so no one can find him. So that's still 17 minutes though. They got him leaving his house. That's what this is saying right here. They got him leaving his house. So he pinged enough to leave his house. They got that first ping of him leaving the house and going southeast, consistent with the phone leaving the residence and traveling south. So if anything, this was the last ping right here. I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you, Paula, but he could have very well shut it down at 2:20. He could have shut it down at 2:30. But I'm reading this as this is the last ping that they have for him leaving his house and traveling through Pullman. Because we have to remember they also have some kind of camera footage that they can put the timestamp on as well of him leaving the residence and traveling south. Does that make sense? That's
Yeah.
what this is. This is consistent with the movement of the White Elantra.
You know what
So,
would be interesting is if in any of those research questions that he asked of former criminals and how'd you get caught, what'd you do before the crime, what'd you do after. It'd be interesting if there's documentation showing that someone answered one of those questions with like details about what you do with your cell phone prior to a crime. I'm surprised that he
okay,
even had
okay,
his
gotcha,
phone.
gotcha. She said that was in regard to you and Jeff meeting up. Okay, gotcha. That makes a lot more sense. Yeah, you're
Oh yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah.
You're right on that. You're right. My bad. My bad. You're right on that as well, Jeff. I'm just putting this out there because I wanted to talk about it. And I had a lot of this on my mind last night. I just wasn't thinking too clearly. And then it talks about the phone does not report to the network again until there's that word again, approximately 4:48. But based on your example, and you said it pings a little here, so let's approximate it, at this time. That makes a little sense.
Yeah.
What
Well, it's kind
time
of
are you?
similar to like in video editing before it was digital. We when it was just tape to tape editing. You'd I'd sit there and I'd look for the exact frame where the video faded to black, and I was looking for the very first frame where it was just definitely black, nothing, no previous image. And you'd sometimes now you could sit there and you'd turn the brightness up on the monitor and things like that. But sometimes I'd watch it go to fade to black, and then I'd hit the button to mark it, and it's just an approximate spot. I truly am looking for the first frame of black when it fades to black. But sometimes
Right.
it's just an approximate is fine. That suffices. You don't need it to be exact, to the minute,
Right.
to the frame.
Right. Paula says approximately is probably used for possible variation in time clocks. One traffic like, yeah, that makes sense too. That makes
Yeah,
sense.
I bet they have like big old charts that display. It's like, okay, this is the true time. This body cam is off by 12 seconds. This traffic camera is off by 3. I mean, when I think about the clock tower on the University of Idaho, at the top of the hour, it's 2 minutes off almost exactly. At the
Right.
bottom of the hour, it's 1 minute and 39 seconds off. So it's like little things like this they'll surely have like at the ready,
Right.
so that they know when they're talking about a time, they know what time they're talking about.
And you know what I'm doing right now is what we're all doing, us three, is I'm representing the bend but don't break. It says approximately, so it must be this time. You guys are being the open minded one, don't even realize that you and Paula. You are
Yeah,
the ones that are using critical thinking, and I'm doing the other on purpose. And you are showing me that you're capable of seeing what other people say and putting it in a constructive way. What I'm doing is what a lot of people do on here on YouTube is they say, "What's it approximately 5:30?" So it must be 5:30. It can't be
uh,
5:31. It can't be 5:29. But
right,
you
right,
you and Paula have brought up examples that can give different variations for different reasons. But there's a lot of people that can't live with that.
right,
They
right.
cannot live with that. They can't live in that world. So what I'm showing is the ability for you two and everybody else in the chat to be critical minded enough to look outside the box.
Yeah,
And that's why I wanted to show this PCA because it's not my wording, it's Officer or Corporal Payne's wording. And this is basically just stating that, they matched this up with the phone and the Elantra. So for every time they got the phone movement, they got a video of the Elantra that's observed going that direction. Does that make sense?
right, right.
See, I never thought of it that way. I thought, don't laugh at me too hard, either one of you or the rest of you in chat, because I was naive at one point when I was listening to this for the first time. I thought the 12 pings were going to be the movements taking him to the 1122 King Road house. I thought that those 12
Right,
pings
right.
were what they got him. They got him at this street light. There's a ping. They got him at this street light. There's a ping. They got him at. You get what I'm saying?
Right.
I
Yeah.
thought,
You're not the only one. I've heard a lot of people make statements where it's obvious that that's what they were thinking. But yeah, the 12 pings are like it could have been a week ago, a week prior to the crime, the day before, right? Isn't that what the 12 pings are referring to? Not
yes,
12 pings on November 13th. 12 pings to show this is a pattern of habit prior to the
yeah,
crime, and then well, maybe we haven't gotten there yet about what the cold turkey visits to Moscow, where you just stop all of a sudden, you don't go to Moscow anymore.
yeah. That's what we started it with. I mean, that was the very first one that we
Oh,
talked
okay,
about.
okay.
Where after that he talks about, it's been his experience and training and this and that and the other about when somebody phone doesn't stops reporting to the network, they've either turned it off and this, that, and the other. That was after that.
But
So that was
because I'm mixing up what we talked about before the show and then what we've talked about live. But there was that phrase that said there was nothing to
okay. It's
date,
coming up
right?
here. You're right. You're
Yeah.
right. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Then it goes through all that. Then it says investigators found that the phone did connect to a cell phone tower to provide service to Moscow on November 14, 2022, but investigators do not believe
the phone was in Moscow on that date. The 8458 phone had not connected to any tower to provide service to Moscow since that date. So they don't believe that Koberger was back in the area because obviously they were probably watching his car at this point. I doubt they say they weren't, but there's no other way that um they couldn't know this. Do you get what I'm saying?
Hmm. Yeah, this is on the 14th. This is a full. Uh, wait, the
Paula
crime. The
says it's
crime happened on the
amazing me that
13th, morning
different
of the
people
13th.
can read the same document, translate it in different ways.
No doubt.
Approximately is probably used for possible variation in one traffic. Yeah, that's what she said earlier. But I mean, I was thinking of the Bible when I was reading this earlier and
Uh huh.
probably 3 times ago. You know, we could all be in a Bible study, and this is the only example I can think of at the moment. So don't come at me with religious stuff, okay? Don't unsubscribe me because you're not a believer. The only thing I could think of at the moment.
Uh huh.
We could be having a Bible study. We're all reading the same chapter. You read a paragraph, I read a paragraph, and Paula or whoever else is in chat reading a paragraph, and then we go to discuss it. We've all read the same paragraph, but we're all going to have different interpretation based on the outcome that we see is our reality. See, if you've
Mm-hmm.
been programmed, if you've been programmed that you've had run-ins with the law, or maybe a family member's had a run-in with the law, or maybe you feel that they got railroaded, or maybe they've
Right.
convinced you that the cops are crooked, or they planted evidence on them, or this, that, and the other. Then when you read something, it's gonna stick out to you that look, there's the evidence right there that
Yeah.
this was
Yeah.
planted, this was not right, this was not done right. But if you're on the other side of the coin and you've worked in that environment, or you've worked with criminal minded people, or you've worked in social services, or anything that enables you being critiquing and analytical and searching for things that aren't there, then you're going to be reading it totally different because you've been trained to look at a document totally different based on what it's saying and your expertise on the topic. Kind of like that homicide investigator earlier. I could have been reading him totally wrong. He could have been right on point. Somebody else sees him doing that interview, they're like, "Hey, that's 90% of them, bro. That's 90% of their demeanor. That's the way they are."
Right. Right. Yeah, it kind of gets to our biases, right? To how we
Mhm.
and our like with the Bible study thing. It's like we might read the passage "Thou shalt not kill," and I read that and I say, now I'm vegan now,
Right.
because that's you understand it to that well, I was going to say to that extreme, but maybe that's not extreme for some. But yeah, I really do feel like, and I've often said in chat rooms, it's like, you know what? If I had the hatred and disdain for law enforcement that some do here, maybe I would see the things the same way you do. Because I really think that bias is, it's, I try to, like I said earlier, I think I was saying, I definitely have a bias. I think everybody has a bias. But it's going to affect how you read what you read and how you interpret what you're reading and
Well,
you
I'm
know
reading this unbiased. When I read this last night and I read it today and I read it twice yesterday, even before reading the next paragraph, I didn't read the next paragraph. I didn't know what was coming. And that's when I get attacked sometimes. It's like, well, let me show you. You know what I mean? Not that anybody's done that recently, but I've had that happen to me. Well, let me show you where you're wrong. You
yeah,
just took
yeah,
this out of context. No, I didn't. When you're when you're taught to read, they teach you to read one sentence at a time, one word at a time, till you
right,
understand what the sentence structure says. And then you put the whole paragraph together in your interpretation of what was just read to by you. And then you go to the next one, and then you put it all together and say, okay, well, I could see how this started off showing me that there was no more connection on the date after, but then he goes and says, well, there's a reason for that because it's this, and this. But my interpretation is either going to believe what he says, or I'm going to say he's full of crap and he's just trying to cover himself because this this paragraph right here shows to all the people that believe he's innocent. This paragraph right here shows it. If you're going to read it that way,
Let me ask
if
you this,
you're
because I when we were talking about like which can go into the PCA and what can't. I mean, I did a little search and I found on this it's the law office of some guy, but the way it's worded, it says just the basics of why the officer thinks you broke the law is what
Yeah,
is included in the PCA. So
yeah.
does that make it okay then to say, because the officer is explaining why he thinks you broke the law when he says, in my experience, this is consistent with those that turn their phones off, before they commit a crime, or they leave their phones somewhere away from the crime. So that's kind of what I was looking for, because I truly don't know the rules when it comes
Well,
to the PCA.
let me give you a little bit of what's to come, okay? Because today kind of precursed that in the hearing that they were having, because the judge was talking about we haven't even got to the motion to suppress yet. They're asking for the motion to compel, basically the discovery. This is part of the discovery right here. And if the defense want to suppress anything, they're going to want to suppress this part right here because you don't want this being in there. You're wanting to show, hey, this is why my client is innocent. Look, after from 3 to 5, there was no more, there was, the phone wasn't connected to any towers. They're going to want to suppress this. They don't give a shit what the officer, based on his training experience or the facts, they
Right.
don't care about this. The defense is going to want to suppress this because you don't want this being stated to the jury because that's going to be able to just show, okay, well, they're going to be up and down. Okay, well, the phone wasn't pinging, but then the officer said the reason that the phone could not be pinging is because of this, and this. But this doesn't say anything about the car. You get what I'm saying? This just says about the
Mm.
phone. This down here it talks about the car.
Right. That's kind of his conclusion, right? That the user of the phone was likely the driver of the white Elantra.
But let me ask you this, based on your understanding of semantics, if the phone is not there, how is the car there? You get what I'm saying? If the phone's not here, connected to anything, wouldn't you have video of the car not being there either? Like, if this is the route that they said he took, coming back,
Right. So this is on the 14th, right? This is
the day after,
I
yeah.
s- yeah, this is the full day after. The whole an entire day of daylight has gone by. It doesn't say what time on the 14th, but like, say for example, he's just the tower that they're talking to, that it connected to, or that they're talking about, that it connected to. Is it something that his apartment is right on the edge of service or connection? Kind of like if you walk into the kitchen, maybe it's close enough to connect to the tower, but you walk in the living room and it doesn't connect. Could it be something, to that effect? I think the main point, though, they're trying to make in those two sentences is the most important thing, is that since that date, that phone has not been what appears to be traveling to Moscow. And I think the point he's trying to make is like, well, would you travel to Moscow after doing something like this, or would you kind of avoid going to that area?
Right,
Although they
right.
do make the point that it appeared that they believe that he went near the area around 9 a.m. The morning after the murders, right? Which always had me thinking, it's like, okay, if you go in there, you're driving in at 4 a.m.
That's what it's
Committing the
saying. That's what,
crimes, and you're
yeah,
and you're,
that's what it's
are
saying
you
right
really
here. That's this part right here. It says investigators found that the phone did connect to a cell phone tower to provide service to Moscow on November 14, 2022. That would be the next morning. But
right?
they didn't put the time, but investigators do not believe the phone was in Moscow on that date. How do they know that?
But the 9 a.m. is on the 13th when they believe that he was near Moscow see um, on the
So
13th.
with the 12th to the 13th of the murders.
Right.
So
Yeah, the night
12
of the
going
12th
into
into the
yeah,
13th.
into the 13th. So it would have been the 13th at 9 a.m.
Yeah, because it says now it's my page 14 on the PCA, but further review indicated that the IDA-HOE4 phone utilized cell resources on November 13th that are consistent with the phone leaving the area of the Coburger residence at approximately 9 a.m. and traveling to Moscow, Idaho. So that's
So this is saying that on the 14th, it also showed that found it did connect itself. So on the 14th, it connected as well. But
well, it
the
almost sounds like what they're trying to say is that like we got this piece of evidence over here. It says it looks like he came back 5 hours later at 9 a.m. maybe to check his handiwork, and then nothing more after that date, except there was that one little ping or connection on the 14th. Maybe he thought about he was going to go check out Moscow one more time. Thought, no, that's it. That was my last viewing of Moscow.
That's
I
what
soaked in my last view, and then I went home, and now can't go back
I'm
there.
good.
Can't return.
But I mean, that cold turkey thing that you said, and I'm not trying to just, ride what you say, but
Uh-huh.
it makes a lot of sense. Is if you've been visiting an area since June, and supposedly you said the shopping was better there, you've been seen at the university more than once by numerous people, and this is based on interviews that I've seen on News Nation and things of that nature. That's where I got that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you know, so all up to the murder, what would make you stop going to Moscow?
Right.
I mean,
Was he
because he was
was he
still
quoted
he was
somewhere as
still
saying the
there.
shopping was great in Moscow or something? Maybe
Yes,
all of a
yes,
sudden they raised their prices. Maybe I don't know.
yeah. I mean, because there was 30 days in between that and the time that his dad flew in, and they left. I'm not trying to persuade you or anybody else one way or the other. This is just how my mind thinks, and I'm just
Right. We're just talking about. I was
vocalizing.
just
Yeah,
right
yeah.
as
I'm just
you're right at this
vocalizing.
moment. I was thinking about how this is received by, they. I don't like to call anybody names. We're sometimes I'm called a
Guilters.
guilter. Fine, no problem. There's those that go by, I guess the opposite name is pro burgers, but there are pro burgers out there that would have serious issue with us having this conversation. It would just upset them as if they but it's just talk and conversation based on what little of the pieces of the puzzle we have to like put together, and in my mind there's he could be innocent. Let's see how it goes together. But when I'm looking at the puzzle pieces that I see, I'm thinking I'm kind of leaning towards the guilty. So therefore I guess I earn the loving label, the guilter, which is fine. But you know what, I let me put it this way to the pro burgers. I believe in your skills of conversation, and you could convince me. Don't give up on yourself.
You know, it's kind of like nanny nanny boo boo. You know what I mean? I'm gonna show you that you're wrong. I gotta have one up on you. Like I'm telling you this paragraph right here, and I'm saying, well, this is evidence right here. Well, then you say, well, look at this. Look at the next. Not that you said this, but look at the next paragraph. What does that have to do? This shows you that you're wrong. He had his phone off. And then it goes on and on and on, back and forth. And it's really not, there's evidence in here, but a lot of it is just a back and forth volleying of the person who wrote this. It's almost like, I'm going to put the evidence, but I got to put in there my experience as an officer to make sure the judge signs off on this. Otherwise, it's just too flimsy without me interjecting myself in it. And no telling how many people wrote this. It says him, but you know what? He could have, and he signed it down here.
Right.
You know, if these are signatures from two different people, you know, these two people signed it. So two people could have wrote this. You know, he could have put this part, and then his partner says, well, let me put it based on my training. This is what's happened in the past. So this explains why that could have happened. That's not what the PCA is. This is not the investigative part. You've already done that. This is you presenting the evidence that you found out that makes you believe that there's probable cause for an arrest. That's it. This had nothing to do with you finding him guilty or innocent. And unfortunately, that's what a lot of people have done with this, is they try to play lawyer with this information that's on here, and you can't do that. Because
Right.
as you found out today, there's more information that the public doesn't even know about.
Yeah, I keep saying recently that, like, we didn't know the position of Kaylee's body, where it was found, how it was found, until just recently. That's so clearly, just that one example alone says that there is more information we don't know.
Right.
We're not getting it. It's not coming to us in a flood of information, and it probably won't. I mean, that's what they're trying to avoid, is
Right.
sharing all this with the even Ann Taylor. I think is careful not to reveal too much. Even Edelman, when he was on the stand talking about the stalking, even he said, "Well, I didn't want to say it. You know, I didn't want to say it out loud."
Right.
So I think they're trying to, and and even Bill Thompson said, like, his issue with these survey questions from Edelman. It's like he was expressing his concern for Brian Koberger's rights. And you know, when you go out doing a survey where you're basically in part teaching the public about some elements of this case that maybe they didn't know before. I mean, I just wonder, like, when I try to imagine when they're trying to pick the jury, and they're picking jury members, they're rejecting jury members. Will there be some when they're picking where they say, "Did you get a phone call about this survey? Okay, thank you for coming. We appreciate your time. Sorry for the inconvenience. We're not interested in you as a juror." You know, is it possible that kind of thing, you know, can happen? I'm sure they want somebody who has no idea, they don't know anything about this case whatsoever. You know, and is there a portion when, I'm no lawyer, but maybe a lawyer would know better the answer to this question, but do they want a juror that is local, that cares about the community around where this happened? Where that, if that's the case, is that one reason why you don't want to change a venue, send it off, like, you know, 100 miles away to where the people that are on the jury, it's like, well, this doesn't really apply to me. I don't live anywhere near where this happened. So,
Right.
you know, I just want to go home. I'm not going to take this as seriously as if it was down the street from my house. You know,
Well,
so
as
maybe
I'm
there's a
reading
design.
this looks like a thesis paper from a criminal justice student. Like, even based on this, it says on December 23rd, 2022, I was granted a search warrant for its historical data from June 23rd to current prospective location information and a pin register trap and trace on the phone to aid in the effort to determine if Koberger stalked any of the victims in the case prior to the offense, conducted surveillance of the King Road residence, was in contact with any of the victims. It's like he's telling you what the search warrants were, what he put in them, and why he requested them. He viewed this as the evidence that needed to be put in there. Obviously, I'm just speculating here.
But that's how it reads. It reads that he's putting this evidence in here, and then he follows up with what he got. This is what I asked for. This is what I got. This is what I asked for. This is what I got.
Right.
So he could have left all that. This is what I asked for, because the evidence that he got back, I think a lot more people would be okay with just knowing the facts, not what he asked for.
Right. And I imagine people that write and have experience writing PCAs, they know what stuff works best in a PCA. What stuff is just extraneous and you're just wasting the judge's time, and which stuff is like, this is critical. This will save the judge having to ask me a question about it because I've put it in there. I answer the question before, and I kind of anticipate the question, and I put it in the PCA. Therefore, it's like the judge will look at it and say, okay, I have no questions. Okay, we'll grant the arrest.
Well, we don't know how many times he wrote this either and presented it. We just know the last time. He could have wrote this 4 times or since they got on Koberger, based when the search warrants came back. He could have wrote this 4 or 5 times. The judge could have rejected each time and said, hey, there's not enough information in here. So he said, okay, I'm going to be the overachiever. I'm tired of getting this tossed back to me. So let me put more information. I mean, that's what I do on my freaking papers. Like, I'm tired of failing this. Obviously, I'm not giving you enough information. I'm going to give you overkill. And guess what? My papers have been passing since. Not saying that that's what happened, but that's the correlation that I get out of the instructors. You're not giving me enough meat and potatoes. You're starving me here. So you know what? I'm going to give you a buffet of information. You can't deny me then. Does that make sense, Jeff?
Yeah, it's kind of like maybe what you've got to do is kind of get a gauge of like how busy your professors are. If they make a lot of statements like, man, I've just got so many papers to look through and grade, I just don't have time to do that. I want to go play a game of golf. And you're like, okay, yeah, he's swamped. I'm going to make this paper very long. And then he's going to, because then the question is, do I really read all this or do I go play golf? It's like,
right.
Just give him an A. It looks like I skimmed it. It looks pretty good.
Right. He implied they suspected stalking but didn't have proof. If there was proof, I think there would have been additional charges for stalking. I I believe you're right. Or there would have been some kind of, some kind of, I don't know. They could make anything really stick if they wanted. But you're right on that. There wasn't one. When the charges first came out, I was stuck on the burglary charge because they said there was no, and I know the definition now, but then I didn't know. So I'm basically going back in time and telling you what my impression of everything was. The burglary, I thought, well, he didn't steal anything, or did he? And then we heard that there was some ID cards and this and that. I was thinking, well, maybe that's where they got the burglary at, or maybe he took some kind of souvenir. Maybe he took a fry from the freaking DoorDash or the hamburger. Maybe he ate it. I mean, I know that sounds silly, but in my mind, I was thinking, well, how the hell did they get him for burglary? But now I understand it.
You thinking maybe it was like Pulp Fiction, where he took a drink of his drink and then took a bite out of his
Exactly
cheeseburger?
like that. Exactly like that. We're a generation that's grown up watching too many movies, and I think sometimes, in my mind as well as others, I'm sure, we instantly pop in a scene in our heads when we see something that's just too horrific to think about. We want to kind of minimize it, and I've done that too, Jeff. I just told you. I said, maybe he ate some fries, or maybe he ate the rest of the burger after, if he was in there. I'm about to
The whole stalking thing isn't really you think about it, is it really that important? I mean, the reason the crime was done, is it that important? It seems to be more important that we'd love to know the reason. But it's that can we prove that this person did this crime? Why they did it? I mean, if they want to tell us, sure, but it's not necessary. You know,
Well,
it's not absolutely necessary.
most of the time, just like what Paula just said, most killers they start off by being voyeurs, or stalkers. Um, and that could be they were looking for motive, not intent, motive. Because that's all you heard in the very beginning is we've yet to hear a motive. We've yet to hear a motive. Well, nobody has to give you the motive. You know what I mean? And that's why they were throwing all kinds of stuff out there based on what they said it was a targeted attack. It was a crime of passion. So the mainstream media trying to fill in the blank just like everybody else. Well, we're going to put that he was stalking the victim because we've seen that he was following so and so on social media. So he must have been stalking them.
Right. You're kind of connecting the
Yeah,
dots.
yeah. To try to connect the dots. To show motive. If we can show that he was stalking them on social media, then we can show pretty much that he was in the house that night because he was infatuated with one of them and they rejected him. So therefore, he went and killed 4 people, left 2 people alive.
And that, I mean, if you look at the back of that house, if you are a pervert, that is like the perfect house. I'm not saying that as if I'm questioning whether you are or not. I'm pretty sure you're not.
Well,
But
I'm questioning you and how you're like
I,
describing it. I'm like, okay,
I
Jeff,
just know a lot of
let's
perverts. I
go
go on their
on.
live streams. They invite me on their live streams, and but not you, not you. But I mean that the back of that house is like a peeping tom's dream. I mean it's I think it was, you remember, I haven't seen him online doing lives for a long time, but Rory, I know
Yeah,
was parked his car back there.
yeah.
He showed that you don't even have to park your car and view the show in Maddie's window through the front window of your car. You can park there and and view it through your rear view mirror. Nobody would suspect that anything's weird is going on other than you're just sitting in your car. And nowadays, people sit in their car, you got the little glow of their cell phone, or who knows, they're playing Candy Crush or they're texting with somebody, or it's
Or
nothing
they're zooming in to
nothing
take a
to
video. Yeah, nothing to see here.
yeah, nothing weird. Um so and I really think it's possible that that's how this all started, was that it just took that one moment where he just happened to drive by and see through that window. Could have been visiting somebody. Could have just, I don't know, what circumstance just made him view that window, and then after that,
You're on
who knows
point,
what he
Paula.
saw, and then it's like, oh, well, what? Then the next day, did you think about, whatever causes the mind to ruminate on something like that, and then not be able to get it out of your mind. I mean, it's the same kind of thing in a healthy sense. When when I met my wife, and every time I'd see my wife, I'm ruminating on her, right? So
Right.
take it to the extreme with somebody who's got a little bit of a twisted mind, and although these things don't necessarily start out as twisted. You might
Of
desire
course
the
not.
person you see in that window, but then something happens, and what
Well, let
what
me give you this little piece of information, Jeff. Just something to chew on before next time. Think of this. You know that this is the spot. Everybody in that area, I'm sure, knows that the 1122 King Road House is where the party's at. It doesn't matter who you are, who you're associated with, even if you're not popular. You know that this is the spot where all the hot girls live and all the guys who want to be with them go.
yeah.
So even if you weren't part of that crowd, could it have been that maybe he was just around that area watching because he wanted to see how foolish people act when they're drunk or they're playing games in the yard or they're taking silly selfies, or maybe he's older so he's
hmm
not their age. He's going to be like, I've outgrown this. Look how stupid they look, or look at this, or look at that. Sit there for an hour and watch this and go, I gotta go. I'm gonna go jog, or I'm gonna go do this. That's more productive. instead
Right.
of being the guy that's like, oh, I wish I was part of that. Like the Gonzalez said one time, he was jealous because they had a life he wasn't living. Come on.
Mm.
He was more accomplished in his college career than a marketing major. Do you get what I'm saying? So that is just crap to me.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I
You know,
wanted to say,
or even, you can. I've been in situations where I found myself like a guy was. I thought he was having car trouble. He couldn't get he couldn't figure out what was wrong with his car, and I thought he had like maybe like an English accent. I couldn't quite make it out and figure out what I was hearing in the guy, but eventually I helped him. I was like, "Well, here's your problem. Your car's not in park. You're trying to start it and you're in reverse or whatever gear it was." So we fixed that, and then all of a sudden, I don't know if it's just I caught a whiff of like alcohol or it's like it hit me. It's like I have just helped a guy who I thought had an accent maybe because he's from England. His accent was because he's drunk. It was slurred speech, I guess, or his version. So now I've helped him fix his car, and then I thought, and I started talking to him. It's like, are you okay to drive? I said, have you been drinking? He said, well, yeah, I've been drinking, but I know my limits. I'm good. I'm good. I was like, I don't think you're okay to drive.
right,
And I insisted. I was like, why don't you just leave your car here? Can't you get a ride or something? And he's like, no, I promise you, I'm okay. I'm okay. And then he took off, and I just wasn't convinced. So I got in my car and I followed him.
right.
So what I'm saying is this is the kind of thing that can happen when you involve yourself with a stranger, right? So,
Yeah.
and maybe that's could have been what happened at a restaurant. He, sees this person. I followed the guy, and I followed him into Washington D.C. And there's this 12th Street exit, and you come off the exit, and it makes a sharp left turn, goes into a tunnel, and he bounces off the curb on the right side, and it's like, that's it. This guy is going to kill somebody. And so you come through the tunnel, you come up to a stoplight, and I came up next to him, and I said, "You are not fit to drive." I said, "You are going to kill somebody." And he
Right.
looked at me. He's like, "Are you serious?" I said, "Yes." I said, "Pull your car over. You're going to park your car. I'll give you a ride wherever you got to go, but you are not going to drive." And so I said, and then like I was scared to death after that because the next thing I said was very stupid. I said, "Follow me." I thought, great. Now I've got a drunk driver behind
Right.
me, but I thought at least I can guide him to like the nearest place to park his car, and he parked it. He left it there, and I drove him, and it's like he couldn't even hardly find where he lived anymore. My wife was not thrilled about me involving myself with a stranger in Washington D.C. in the middle of the night. But I wrote down my cell phone number. I said, look, just call me if you. And that's what he did the next day. I don't remember all of what happened, but where's my car? And I told him, I said, you're at the intersection of this and this. You parked it over there. And he was
Right.
very grateful. He said, thanks, man. I appreciate it. But what I'm trying to say is that maybe you can get yourself either connected to a person you see that's a stranger, and you maybe just follow them. So in the beginning, I was just following him. I wasn't intending to get to know this guy really by name and everything, and have him have my cell phone number.
But what
Um,
if, here's the what if, okay? What if one of his students mentioned this house? Hey, bro, maybe he was cool with one of his students, okay? Maybe he was cool with one.
mhm.
And he said, "Hey, bro, I'm headed to this party this weekend. You should stop by. It's really happening." He's a single guy. They have beer, they have weed, they have whatever. The guy's like, Koberger's like, sure, why the hell not? Let me go see what this is all about. So he drives by there and he gets infatuated, not with any of the girls, but with the lifestyle, okay? With the party
Right.
lifestyle. Because maybe he didn't do that because he was in recovery, he's trying to get a education. But doesn't still mean that he didn't enjoy seeing something that interests any single guy would be a lot of females around. And based on their pictures, they didn't wear a lot of clothes. So
Right.
I'm just saying. But Jeff, I've appreciated you being on. If you want to stay on for a couple seconds after I log off,
Sure.
the live. That'd be great. The rest of you in chat, hope I didn't bore you to death. Hope this information was kind of a little moving in one way or the other. Like I said, I'm not pro or against. I'm right down the middle. So eventually we'll find out exactly what's going to happen. Keep coming back. Keep telling people this is where it's at, because one day they'll believe you and they'll actually show up.
You know what my favorite part though was when you were talking about how brilliant me and Paula are. That was my favorite part. And I
Oh
think
yeah,
both Paul and I agree with you about about how brilliant we are.
yeah. Um,
But you know what time it is, right?
I do.
Maestro.
Cue the music.